My name is Tori Thatcher, and 5 years ago, my mother said 7 words that changed my life forever. Don't come home this year. Victoria doesn't want drama. That was it. No apology. No explanation. No kindness. Just a cold sentence that slammed the door on me like I was nothing. I was 27 years old at the time. I already had my plane ticket to Connecticut sitting on my kitchen counter. I had packed half my suitcase. I even lit a pumpkin candle in my tiny Boston apartment because I wanted to feel excited for Thanksgiving. Then my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I smiled when I answered. Hey, Mom. I was just about to. Tori. Her voice stopped me immediately. Cold. Flat. Sharp. My stomach tightened. What's wrong? I asked quickly. Is Dad okay? Your father's fine. Then silence. The kind that makes your chest hurt before the bad news even comes. Listen, she finally said, I've been thinking, and I don't think you should come home this year. I actually laughed. I thought she was joking. What? Victoria doesn't want drama while she's pregnant. My hand tightened around the phone. Drama? I whispered. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I mean. No, I don't. Mom sighed loudly like I was exhausting her. She's stressed enough already, Tori. She doesn't need you upsetting her. I haven't even talked to Victoria in months. Exactly, Mom snapped. And let's keep it that way. I stared out my apartment window while snow drifted slowly past the glass. Mom, all I did was ask why she didn't invite me to her baby shower last year. There you go again. What? Making everything about yourself. My throat burned. I asked a question. You always do this, she said. You always create tension. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, I already bought my ticket. Then get a refund. Her voice turned harder. Victoria is pregnant. She comes first right now. You understand? Then she hung up. Just like that. No goodbye. I stood there frozen in the middle of my apartment while the candle flickered beside me. And deep down, I understood something terrible. This wasn't new. This was my whole life. Suddenly memories came rushing back so fast they almost made me dizzy. My 16th birthday. I had planned everything for weeks. Bowling. Cake. 3 close friends. I was so excited. Then Victoria called crying because she failed a calculus test. Mom canceled my birthday immediately. Don't be selfish, Tori, she told me. Your sister needs emotional support. I spent my birthday sitting on the couch while everyone comforted Victoria. They promised we would celebrate the next weekend. We never did. Then came college graduation. I worked so hard for that day. 4 years of studying. Late nights. Part-time jobs. Cheap noodles for dinner. I graduated with honors. I was the first person in my family to do that. When I walked across the stage, I searched the crowd for my parents. Their seats were empty. They arrived 2 hours late because Victoria had a doctor appointment. Mom hugged me afterward and said, "You understand, sweetheart. The baby is more important than a ceremony. More important than me." That was always the message. Victoria mattered. I adjusted. I apologized. I stayed quiet. I tried to become easier to love. Smaller. Quieter. Less emotional. Because every time I got hurt, I heard the same things. Stop being dramatic. You're too sensitive. Why can't you just be happy for your sister? So eventually, I stopped fighting. I thought if I became invisible enough, maybe they would finally choose me. But sitting there in my apartment with that useless plane ticket, I finally understood the truth. There was no version of myself small enough for them. I called my father. Part of me still hoped he would defend me. Just once. He answered after 4 rings. "Hey, kiddo." His voice sounded nervous. He already knew. "Dad," I said quietly, "did Mom tell you?" A long pause. "She mentioned it. And you're okay with this?" Another pause. I could hear football on the television behind him. "You know how your mother is." I closed my eyes. "So excluding me keeps the peace?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Silence. I could picture him rubbing his forehead the way he always did when conversations became uncomfortable. "Dad," I whispered, "do you even want me there?" 5 seconds passed. Then 10. Finally he cleared his throat. "I think it's better if you listen to your mother this year." Something inside me went completely still. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. "Okay," I said. "Tori, don't be like that." I said okay. I hung up. He never called back. That night I sat in the dark for hours. And slowly, a quiet decision formed inside me. If I wasn't welcome at their table anymore, maybe it was time to stop begging for a seat. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray. I woke up to the sound of my neighbors celebrating upstairs. Kids laughing. Doors opening. Warm voices. The smell of stuffing drifted through the vents. My phone stayed silent. No calls. No texts. Not even a happy Thanksgiving. Around noon, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Victoria had posted a family photo. Mom. Dad. Victoria. Her husband. Their little boy wearing a tiny turkey sweater. Everyone smiling. The caption said, "So grateful for the people who matter most." I zoomed in. There were 5 chairs. No empty seat for me. That hurt more than I expected. They hadn't just excluded me. They erased me. I threw my phone onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to stay in bed all day. Order food. Cry. Become exactly what they already believed I was. A sad, dramatic daughter. But another part of me refused. No. I wouldn't let them destroy me. If I was going to spend Thanksgiving alone, I would at least eat somewhere warm. That's how I ended up at Harborview Grill. The restaurant glowed with soft golden light. Families filled every table. People laughed. Kids ran around. Grandparents hugged each other. The smell of turkey and fresh bread wrapped around me the second I walked in. The hostess looked at me with sympathy. "Just one?" I forced a smile. "Just one." She sat me at a tiny corner table beside a huge family gathering. 3 generations. An older couple. 2 grown sons. Kids. Laughter. They passed dishes around without even asking. Everyone belonged there naturally. I tried not to stare. But my chest ached watching them. This is what family is supposed to feel like. My food arrived. Perfect turkey. Mashed potatoes. Cranberry sauce. I couldn't taste any of it. The family beside me kept laughing. The younger son told terrible jokes. The kids screamed with laughter. The older woman touched everyone gently when she spoke. I sat there silently pushing food around my plate. And suddenly everything hit me at once. 27 years. 27 years spent trying to earn love. Trying not to upset anyone. Trying not to need too much. Trying not to hurt. And what did it get me? A lonely table beside the kitchen. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. I turned toward the window quickly and pressed my napkin against my face. "Honey?" I froze. A soft voice stood beside me. I looked up. The older woman from the family next door smiled down at me. She had silver hair and kind eyes that looked like they truly saw people. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I'm fine, I lied automatically. Allergies. One eyebrow lifted. Allergies usually don't make people cry during Thanksgiving dinner. A tiny laugh escaped me. That obvious? Only to someone paying attention. She pulled out the chair across from me. I'm Eleanor Morrison. Tori. Well, Tori, she said softly, nobody should eat alone today. Come sit with us. I shook my head immediately. Oh no, I couldn't. You absolutely could. I don't want to interrupt your family dinner. Eleanor smiled. My husband tells awful jokes and my son argues about football with everyone. Trust me, one more person won't hurt. The older man waved from the big table. She never takes no for an answer. The younger son grinned. He's right. I looked at my cold dinner. Then at their warm table. Then back at Eleanor. Something inside me cracked open. Okay, I whispered. Her smile widened. Good. They made room for me instantly. Someone handed me wine. Someone passed rolls. Someone moved a chair closer. Like I already belonged. I'm Richard, the older man said proudly. This is Daniel, Sarah, Emma, Lucas, and our youngest troublemaker Marcus. Marcus smiled at me across the table. Dark hair. Warm eyes. Easy grin. Welcome to the chaos, he said. I laughed softly. For the first time all day, it felt real. Richard immediately launched into a terrible turkey joke. The kids exploded with laughter. Sarah groaned dramatically. Marcus buried his face in his hands. And somehow, I laughed too. A real laugh. Not forced. Not polite. Real. Richard lifted his wine glass. To unexpected guests who complete the table. Everyone raised their glasses. Including me. Warmth spread through my chest so suddenly it almost hurt. After dinner, while the others talked, Eleanor quietly moved beside me. How are you really doing? She asked. I stared down at my plate. I'm okay. That's not what your eyes say. Something about her voice made honesty feel safe. My mother told me not to come home for Thanksgiving, I admitted. Eleanor's expression softened. She said my sister didn't want drama. Drama? That's what they call it when I ask questions. Eleanor nodded slowly. Then she said something that changed me forever. I spent 30 years as a family lawyer, she said quietly. And I learned something important. The people who accuse others of causing drama are usually the ones creating it. I stared at her. You are not the problem, Tori. Nobody had ever said that to me before. Not once. I felt tears rise again. Eleanor gently squeezed my hand. You never were. That night stretched beautifully. Coffee. Pie. Laughter. The kids fell asleep. The men argued about sports. Marcus teased everyone equally. When the bill came, I reached for my wallet. Richard waved me away. Absolutely not. I can pay for myself. Your family tonight, he said. That means dinner is covered. As everyone gathered coats, Eleanor slipped a business card into my hand. If you ever need to talk, call me. Richard added, Sunday dinner every week. You're invited. Marcus leaned against the door. You should come. I looked at all of them. A family that somehow had room for a stranger. Maybe, I said quietly. Eleanor smiled like she already knew the answer. I didn't go the next Sunday. Or the one after that. It felt strange. Too personal. Too generous. But Eleanor called just to check on me. Not because she wanted something. Not because she felt guilty. She simply cared. So finally, in early December, I drove to their house. I stood outside for almost 5 minutes before knocking. The Morrison home looked warm even from outside. Lights glowing. Music playing. the smell of food drifting through the door. Eleanor opened it before I could lose courage. "There you are." Then she hugged me. Like she was genuinely happy to see me. That Sunday became another Sunday. Then another. Soon I was there every week. Richard taught me chess even though I lost constantly. Eleanor showed me her pie recipes. Daniel's children started calling me Aunt Tori. And Marcus. Marcus became my best friend. We texted constantly. We argued about movies. We stayed up talking late. We sat beside each other automatically. And slowly, something inside me healed. Not because anyone forced it. Because for the first time I didn't have to earn love. The Thatcher family never contacted me. No birthday messages. No Christmas card. Nothing. But strangely, I stopped noticing. Because I finally knew what being wanted felt like. One spring afternoon, Eleanor and I sat together on the back porch watching flowers bloom. "Have you heard from your parents?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "Do you want to?" I thought about it carefully. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Mostly at night. I keep wanting to explain things to them. But then I realize, they already know." Eleanor nodded. "That's the hardest part sometimes." I sighed. People always say family should forgive each other no matter what. I've never believed that. I looked at her. "In my work," Eleanor continued, "I saw many people create beautiful families outside of blood relationships. The law recognizes chosen family too." "What do you mean?" She smiled softly. "There are ways to make family official." I didn't fully understand what she meant then. But her words stayed with me. 2 years after that first Thanksgiving, Marcus took me back to Harborview Grill. The exact same restaurant. The exact same corner. "This feels important," I said. "It is." He looked nervous. That alone shocked me. Marcus was never nervous. He reached for my hand. "Tori, you changed my life the second you sat at our table." My heart started racing. "You're my best friend," he said quietly. "My favorite person. The person I want beside me forever." Then he pulled out a small velvet box. "Tori Thatcher, will you marry me?" I started crying instantly. "Yes," I whispered. Then louder. "Yes." The entire restaurant burst into applause. I looked around in shock. And there, smiling proudly in a nearby booth, sat Richard and Eleanor. "Mom helped plan this," Marcus admitted. "Of course she did," I laughed through tears. Wedding planning began immediately. Flowers. Cake tastings. Music. Venues. But one thing haunted me constantly. The wedding invitations. One line kept staring at me. Parents of the bride. I couldn't write Robert and Linda Thatcher. Not after years of silence. Not after abandonment. One evening Eleanor found me pacing the living room. "What's wrong?" I finally told her. The invitations. The guilt. The confusion. Eleanor sat beside me. "Do you remember what I told you about chosen family?" I nodded slowly. "There's something called adult adoption," she said gently. "A legal process where adults officially become part of another family." I stared at her. "That's real?" "Very real." My throat tightened. "Would you and Richard ever consider?" I couldn't finish. Eleanor immediately pulled me into her arms. "We already think of you as our daughter," she whispered. "We were only waiting until you were ready." I cried against her shoulder for a long time. The adoption process took months. Paperwork. Court appearances. Legal documents. But every step felt emotional. Important. Healing. The day the judge finalized everything, I officially became Tori Morrison. I had new legal parents. A new birth certificate. A new family. And for the first time in my life, I felt chosen. The wedding invitations went out soon after. Parents of the bride: Richard and Eleanor Morrison. 3 months before the wedding, my phone exploded. Victoria texted first. "You're getting married?" I blocked her. Then Mom started calling repeatedly. 5 times in one day. Finally she texted. "Why didn't you tell us? We're your family." I stared at the message in disbelief. 3 years of silence. And suddenly they remembered me. Marcus found me sitting quietly with my phone. "You okay?" My biological family found out about the wedding. He wrapped an arm around me. "What do you want to do?" "Nothing." And honestly, I meant it. I was tired. Not angry. Just tired. But my mother wasn't finished. One Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened the door without checking. Huge mistake. Mom stood there. Older. Sharper. Still carrying disappointment in her eyes. "Tori. What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" she snapped, pushing inside without permission. "What are you doing? Getting married without telling your mother? We haven't spoken in 3 years. And whose fault is that?" I stared at her calmly. "Yours." She looked shocked. "You are still upset about one Thanksgiving?" "It wasn't one Thanksgiving." My voice stayed steady. "It was 27 years. Her eyes landed on framed photos around my apartment. Pictures with the Morrisons. Christmas dinners. Beach trips. Smiling faces. "Who are these people?" she demanded. "My family." Her face twisted. "I am your mother." "You were." Silence filled the room. "You don't get to erase me and suddenly demand a seat at my table," I said quietly. "I want an invitation to the wedding." "No." Her jaw dropped. "What?" "You heard me." I walked to the door and opened it. "You taught me exactly what it feels like not to be wanted. I won't let you do that to me anymore." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. The old Tori would have apologized. This Tori finally understood her worth. The wedding day arrived warm and golden. Napa Valley looked beautiful. White roses. Green vines. Soft music. In the bridal suite, Eleanor adjusted my veil carefully. "You look beautiful," she whispered. I looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked strong. Peaceful. Loved. Not like the broken girl crying alone in a restaurant years ago. On the table beside me sat the wedding program. Parents of the bride: Richard and Eleanor Morrison. Underneath it said, "The family who chose her." Tears filled my eyes. Eleanor squeezed my shoulders. "Whatever happens today, remember something." "What?" "You are loved completely." I turned and hugged her tightly. "I love you, Mom." The word came naturally. Her eyes filled instantly. "I love you too, sweetheart." The ceremony was perfect. Richard walked me down the aisle proudly. Marcus looked emotional the second he saw me. Our vows made half the guests cry. When we kissed, the crowd erupted with applause. For one beautiful moment, everything felt whole. Then during the reception, security quietly approached me. "Mrs. Morrison," the guard said carefully, "there are 2 people here claiming to be your parents." I wasn't surprised. Marcus immediately stepped beside me. "I'll handle it." "No." I took his hand. "This is my moment." I thought carefully. I could remove them immediately. But then another thought came. No. Let them see. Let them see the life I built without them. "Let them in," I told security. "But seat them in the back." A few minutes later, I saw them standing awkwardly near the entrance. Mom looked tense. Dad looked uncomfortable. Then the MC stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, let's recognize some very special people tonight. Mom straightened proudly. I knew exactly what she expected. Please welcome the parents of the bride. Richard and Eleanor Morrison. The room exploded with applause. Richard and Eleanor stood smiling proudly. Guests cheered loudly. And across the room, my mother's face went completely white. I watched realization hit her slowly. The confusion. The shock. The humiliation. She finally understood. She had truly lost me. Mom pushed through the crowd toward me. What is this? She hissed. My legal parents, I answered calmly. You replaced us? No. I held her gaze. You abandoned me first. That's not fair. Fair? Marcus stepped beside me supportively. I spent 27 years trying to earn a place in your family, I said quietly. And what did I get? Silence. Exclusion. A Thanksgiving dinner alone. I'm still your mother. Not emotionally, I answered. The room had gone silent around us. Everyone watched. Mom's face turned red. This is humiliating. Then leave. For the first time in my life, my father suddenly spoke. Tori. His voice cracked. I turned toward him. He looked broken. I'm sorry, he whispered. I froze. I should have protected you. Tears rolled down his face. I knew what was happening. I knew your mother and Victoria pushed you aside. And I stayed quiet. Mom grabbed his arm. Robert, stop. But he kept looking at me. You were my daughter, he whispered. And I failed you. Hearing those words hurt more than I expected. Because part of me had waited my whole life to hear them. I know you're sorry, I said softly. But sorry doesn't erase the years. He nodded weakly. I know. Then Eleanor stepped beside me. Mom glared at her. You stole my daughter. Before Eleanor could answer, Richard stepped forward. Calm. Steady. Protective. No, ma'am, he said firmly. You gave her away. Mom flinched. 5 years ago, Richard continued, your daughter sat alone on Thanksgiving because her own family rejected her. My wife invited her to our table. We treated her with kindness. The rest was her choice. His voice grew stronger. This is my daughter's wedding day now. And no one will ruin it. Security stepped closer. Then Richard wrapped an arm around me. Tori is a Morrison, he said proudly. And Morrisons protect their own. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. This was what a father sounded like. Before security escorted them out, I stopped them one last time. Wait. Everyone froze. I looked directly at my biological parents. I don't hate you, I said quietly. Mom blinked in surprise. I made peace with who you are. You're not monsters. You're just people who couldn't love me the way I needed. Dad cried silently. But I also finally understand something important. I stood taller. I deserve to be chosen. I pointed gently toward the Morrisons. You didn't choose me. Then I placed my hand over my heart. They did. And I choose them too. The room stayed silent. Then I nodded toward the door. Goodbye. As security escorted them out, the guests slowly began clapping. Not because of drama. Because they understood. The rest of the wedding felt magical. Dancing. Cake. Laughter. For the first time in my life, I celebrated without fear. The next morning, relatives flooded my phone with angry messages. How could you treat your mother this way? Family is forever. You broke your father's heart. I deleted them all. Then one unexpected message arrived. My Aunt Patricia. I'm proud of you, she wrote. You deserved better your whole life. I cried reading it. Not because it fixed anything. Because someone finally admitted the truth. 2 weeks later, Victoria sent a letter. She claimed Mom was devastated. Dad was heartbroken. But then she wrote something that told me everything. You always made things difficult by bringing up old hurts. I folded the letter quietly. She still didn't understand. She never would. And strangely, that no longer hurt. A year later, life looked completely different. Marcus and I bought a beautiful little house near Boston. I became an art director. Marcus thrived at work. And then came the biggest surprise of all. I was pregnant. When we told Eleanor and Richard, both of them cried. Daniel's children immediately argued over who would hold the baby first. One afternoon Eleanor and I painted the nursery walls soft green together. Have you picked a name? She asked. Emily Grace Morrison, I said softly. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. The Morrison part matters, I added. I want my daughter carrying the name of the family that chose her mother. Eleanor hugged me tightly. When I saw you crying alone in that restaurant, she whispered, I had no idea we would end up here. You saved me that night. She smiled gently. No, sweetheart. You saved yourself. We just loved you loudly enough for you to finally believe you deserved it. 5 years after that lonely Thanksgiving, I sat at the head of a completely different table. The Morrison house buzzed with noise and laughter. Emily giggled in Richard's lap. Kids played cards nearby. Marcus argued with Daniel about football. Eleanor pretended not to notice Richard stealing pie. Finally Eleanor clapped her hands. Before dinner, she announced, Tori has a toast. Everyone looked at me. I stood slowly with Emily in my arms. 5 years ago, I sat alone in a restaurant believing there was something wrong with me. I thought I was too emotional. Too difficult. Too much. Then a stranger walked over and said nobody should eat alone on Thanksgiving. And my entire life changed. I looked around the table. At Richard. At Eleanor. At Marcus. At all the people who loved me without conditions. To family, I whispered. Not the family we're born into. The family we build. The family that chooses us back. Everyone raised their glasses. To family. Glasses clinked. Emily laughed. Richard finally got his extra pie. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt something completely and fully home. Later that night, Marcus and I sat outside wrapped in blankets while Emily slept between us. Do you ever think about them? He asked quietly. My biological family? He nodded. Sometimes, I admitted. Mostly at night. Does it still hurt? I looked through the window at the Morrison family laughing inside. Then down at my sleeping daughter. No, I said honestly. Why not? Because I finally stopped waiting for people to love me correctly. Marcus kissed my forehead. I held Emily closer. I'll never make you earn my love, I whispered to her. You'll never have to wonder if you matter. The cold November wind moved softly around us. And for the first time I understood something important. Setting boundaries isn't revenge. Walking away from people who keep hurting you isn't cruelty. Choosing yourself after years of rejection isn't selfish. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's the bravest thing a person can do. I spent 27 years begging for love from people who only gave it conditionally. Then I spent 5 years learning what real love actually looks like. Real love shows up. Real love protects. Real love chooses you fully. And sometimes, the people who become your true family are strangers sitting at the next table. If you've ever felt invisible inside your own family, if you've ever been blamed for asking to be treated fairly, if you've ever believed you were too much simply because you needed love, I want you to know something. There is nothing wrong with you. You deserve people who choose you proudly. You deserve your own table. And one day, if you keep going, you might look around and realize you finally found home too. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?